Welcome, patrons, to this exclusive Pam Jammer's magical tale. Thank you so much for your incredible support. We couldn't create these stories without you, and we're so grateful to have you on this adventure. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy this special tale crafted just for you. The Good Old Days Part 1. Chapter 1, The Butler Estate. The Uber driver's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel as the wrought iron gates loomed ahead, their rusted scrollwork spelling out BUTLR in jagged, peeling letters. The E dangled by a single screw, swaying slightly in the humid Georgia breeze like a dying man's last breath. The driver cleared his throat, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. "You sure this is the place, kid?" Taylor pressed his forehead against the window, his breath fogging the glass. The estate stretched beyond the gates like something out of a half-remembered nightmare, 3 stories of once grand white columns, now streaked with grime and peeling paint, their grandeur decaying under the weight of time. The wraparound porches sagged in places, the wood beneath the chipped paint blackened with rot. Ivy clung to the walls like a second skin, swallowing the statuary in the overgrown gardens. The lawn, a patchwork of brown and green, looked as if it hadn't been mowed in weeks, and the magnolia trees draped in Spanish moss seemed less like sentinels and more like something dead, their gnarled branches clawing at the sky. The driver shifted in his seat. "Place gives me the creeps, man. You sure you don't want to turn around? I can take you back to town." Taylor didn't answer. He couldn't. His parents had been gone for 3 months, their deaths still a raw, gaping wound, and this was his only option. The lawyer had been clear, Susan Butler is your only family now. He swallowed hard, his fingers tightening around the duffel bag on his lap. "It's fine," he lied. The car rolled forward, gravel crunching under the tires as they passed through the gates. The house loomed larger, its windows dark and watchful. A flagpole near the front steps held a tattered American flag, its stars and stripes frayed and fluttering raggedly in the wind. The scent of honeysuckle and damp earth filled the air, thick and cloying, like the perfume of a corpse. 2 women stood on the front porch. Susan Butler was exactly how he'd imagined her, blonde hair teased into soft, outdated waves, her pastel pink blazer immaculate over a crisp white blouse. A string of pearls glinted at her throat, catching the late afternoon sun. She waved, her rings flashing, her smile too wide, too practiced, like a mannequin's. Beside her, a woman, stood still as a statue. She was tall, nearly his height, her blonde hair styled in loose waves and pinned back with a delicate clip. Her dress was pink, frilly, the kind of thing a child would wear to a birthday party, with white nylons and Mary Jane shoes polished to a mirror shine. The contrast between her pristine appearance and the decaying house behind her made Taylor's stomach twist. The Uber driver slowed to a stop. "You sure about this, kid?" he repeated, his voice low. Taylor hesitated. The house was creepy. The air was heavy. But what choice did he have? He nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah. I'm sure." The driver didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue. "All right. You take care, kid." Taylor stepped out of the car, the humid air wrapping around him like a damp blanket. The Uber pulled away, leaving him alone with the 2 women and the looming estate. His sneakers crunched on the gravel as he approached the porch, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder and suitcase in tow. Susan's smile didn't waver. "Taylor. Oh, you're here," she called, her voice bright as a wind chime. "You look just like your father." He didn't. He knew he didn't. His father had been all sharp angles and quiet strength, while Taylor was leaner, softer, his dark hair falling into his eyes in a way that made him look younger than his 18 years. Besides Susan, the woman, Mary Beth, he assumed, didn't smile. She just watched him with cool, unreadable eyes, her arms crossed over her chest. Her dress was toddler pink, with layers of ruffles and lace, the hem hitting mid-thigh. It should have looked ridiculous on someone her age. But it didn't. It looked right. Like she'd been born to wear it. "Welcome home, darling," Susan said, stepping forward to envelop him in a hug that smelled of lavender and something faintly chemical, like hairspray. She pulled back, her hands still gripping his shoulders. "We're so glad you're here." Taylor forced another smile. "Thanks." Susan's gaze flicked to his bags. "Oh, Martha will take that to your room. Won't you, dear?" A shadow shifted in the doorway behind them. Taylor hadn't even noticed the old woman standing there, frail, her back bent, her white hair tied in a loose bun. She wore a faded black dress and apron, her milky eyes flicking to Taylor for half a second before she shuffled forward to take his bag. She didn't speak. She just nodded and vanished back into the house, her slippers whispering against the warped floorboards. Taylor's skin prickled. Susan looped her arm through his, her grip surprisingly firm. Come. Let's give you the tour." The estate was a maze of overgrown gardens and crumbling statuary. The fountain in the center of the circular drive was dry, its basin cracked and filled with dead leaves. The path leading to the house was lined with wilted roses, their petals brown and brittle. Taylor's sneakers sank slightly into the soft earth as Susan guided him toward the front door, her heels clicking on the stone path. "You'll love it here," Susan said, her voice cheerful. "It's been in the family for generations." Taylor glanced at the peeling paint, the sagging porch, the ivy choking the life out of the gardens. "It's nice," he lied. Susan beamed. "Oh, it's more than nice. It's home." Mary Beth trailed behind them, her arms still crossed, her expression unreadable. Taylor couldn't help but stare at her dress, the way the fabric swished when she walked, the way the ruffles fluttered in the breeze. It was wrong, somehow. Too perfect. Too childish. Susan led him up the steps, her hand still clamped around his arm. The front door creaked open, revealing a foyer that smelled of mildew and old perfume. The wallpaper was yellowed and peeling in places, but the portraits of stern-faced butlers from generations past had been meticulously dusted. The chandelier above them was missing a few crystals, but the ones that remained caught the light, casting prismatic shadows across the floor. Taylor's chest tightened. Susan squeezed his arm. "Now, let's give you the tour of the inside." And just like that, the door closed behind them, sealing him inside. Chapter 2, The Tour. Susan led him into the parlor, her heels clicking on the uneven floor. The velvet sofas were faded, the gold thread unraveling, but the throw pillows were immaculate, embroidered with tiny flowers, their colors vibrant against the worn fabric. A silver tea set gleamed on a wobbly side table, the surface polished to a mirror shine. But the table itself was warped, one leg shorter than the others, making it rock slightly when Susan set her hand on it. "This is where we entertain guests," she said, though the way she said it made it clear those guests hadn't visited in years. "Though, honestly, it's just us most of the time." Taylor's eyes flicked to the fireplace. The mantel was lined with framed photos, most of them of Mary Beth in a frilly pink dress, Mary Beth with a tiara, Mary Beth holding a trophy nearly as tall as she was. In every photo, she was smiling, her blonde curls perfect, her eyes bright. But the Mary Beth standing in the doorway now was different. Her arms were crossed, her posture rigid, her expression flat. "That was her first pageant win," Susan said, following his gaze. "The Magnolia Belle Classic. She was adorable." Mary Beth let out a quiet snort. "I was 5, Mom. It was 20 years ago." Susan's smile faltered for half a second before she turned away, her grip on Taylor's arm tightening. "And this is the library." The library smelled of old paper and mildew. The bookshelves were filled with leather-bound volumes, their spines untouched, their pages pristine. But the air was thick with dust, and Taylor could see cobwebs clinging to the corners of the ceiling. The air felt heavy, like the room had been sealed off for decades. "Your great-grandfather's collection," Susan said, her voice softening. "He was a man of letters." Taylor reached out to touch one of the books, but Susan's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "Don't," she said, her smile never wavering. "They're delicate." Mary Beth rolled her eyes. "They're books, Mom. They won't break." Susan ignored her, her fingers tracing the spine of a volume as if it were made of glass. "And this is the dining room." The dining room was a study in contradictions. The mahogany table was polished to a mirror shine, but the tablecloth beneath was yellowed with age, a faint stain near the center that Susan seemed determined to ignore. The china in the cabinet was delicate, each piece hand-painted with tiny flowers, but the cabinet itself was warped, the doors slightly ajar. "We have dinner here every night at 6, Susan said. Promptly. Mary Beth leaned against the doorway, her arms crossed. "Mom's obsessed with promptness," she muttered. "God forbid we eat at 6:01. Susan's smile tightened. "Discipline is important, Mary Beth." Mary Beth didn't respond. She just pushed off the doorway and disappeared down the hall. Susan watched her go, her expression flickering with something, frustration, maybe, or sadness. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by that same too-wide smile. Now, the sunroom. The sunroom was a disaster. The wicker furniture was rotting, the cushions mildewed and sagging. Potted orchids lined the windowsills, but most of them were wilted, their petals brown and brittle. The ones that were still alive were stunning, their blooms vibrant and lush, as if someone had spent hours tending to them while ignoring everything else. "I love this room," Susan said, her voice dreamy. "The light is just perfect in the mornings." Taylor didn't say anything. He couldn't stop staring at the contrast, the rotting furniture, the dying plants, the way the sunlight filtered through the dirty windows, casting everything in a golden glow that made it all look like a dream. Mary Beth was leaning against the railing of the back porch, her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She looked like she was already somewhere else. "You'll love it here," Susan said, her voice bright again. "It's home." Taylor didn't answer. He wasn't sure he believed her. The staircase creaked under their feet as Susan led Taylor upstairs. The banister was polished, but the carpet runner was threadbare, fraying at the edges. The hallway was lined with more portraits, more butlers staring down at him with their stern, unyielding gazes. "This is your room," Susan said, pushing open a door at the end of the hall. Taylor stepped inside, his breath catching in his throat. The room was neat, impersonal. A bed with crisp white linens. A dresser with a single lamp. A wardrobe with the doors closed. No dresses. No frills. No hints of what was to come. "I had Martha prepare it for you," Susan said, her voice soft. "I thought you might like to settle in." Taylor nodded, his fingers twitching at his sides. He wanted to ask about Mary Beth. He wanted to ask about the photos, about the pageants, about the way Susan's eyes lingered on her daughter like she was trying to memorize her. But he didn't. "Now," Susan said, clapping her hands together. "Let's get you settled." And just like that, the door closed behind him, leaving him alone with the weight of his own curiosity. As Taylor unpacked his things, he could hear Susan and Mary Beth downstairs, their voices drifting up through the floorboards. "I can't believe you're making me stay here all summer," Mary Beth hissed. "You're leaving in the fall," Susan snapped. "Can't you just humor me until then?" "Humor you? Mom, I'm 19. You treat me like I still need a babysitter." "I just want to spend time with my baby," Susan said, her voice cracking. "Is that so wrong?" Mary Beth didn't answer. Taylor sat on the bed, his hands clenched in his lap. He could feel the tension in the house, thick and suffocating. Susan, clinging to the past, to the daughter who was slipping through her fingers. Mary Beth, desperate to escape, to be her own person, to leave this decaying mansion and never look back. And then there was him. Taylor, who had spent the entire tour stealing glances at Mary Beth's dresses, at the way the fabric swished when she walked, at the way the ruffles caught the light. Taylor, who had felt a strange, aching longing every time Susan adjusted her daughter's bow or smoothed her skirt. He wanted to trade places with Mary Beth. More than anything. Chapter 3, Dinner. The dining room was the one place in the house that didn't feel like it was rotting from the inside out. The mahogany table was polished to a mirror shine, the silverware gleaming under the flickering light of the chandelier. The china was delicate, each piece hand-painted with tiny blue flowers, and the crystal glasses caught the light, casting prismatic shadows across the crisp white tablecloth. Susan sat at the head of the table, her posture perfect, her pastel pink blazer immaculate. Mary Beth sat to her right, her frilly pink dress pristine, her blonde hair pinned back with a delicate clip. Taylor sat across from her, his hands clenched in his lap, his dark hair falling into his eyes. He had never eaten a meal like this before. The table was set with more forks than he knew what to do with. There was a salad fork, a dinner fork, a dessert fork, each one polished to a shine, each one waiting to trip him up. He picked up the wrong one first, stabbing at his salad with the dinner fork. Mary Beth's eyebrows shot up, and Susan's lips twitched, though she didn't say anything. Taylor's face burned as he quickly switched forks, his fingers fumbling. "Taylor, dear," Susan said, her voice sweet but sharp, "the salad fork is the smaller one." "Oh," he mumbled, setting the wrong fork down and picking up the correct one. "Right. Sorry." Mary Beth smirked, her eyes flicking to her mother. Susan just smiled, her gaze lingering on Taylor. She was sizing him up. "It's all right," she said. "You'll learn." Taylor nodded, his stomach twisting. He wanted to learn. He wanted to know the rules, the rituals, the way they moved through the world with such ease. He wanted to be like them, poised, proper, perfect. The first course was a salad, mixed greens with a light vinaigrette. Taylor watched as Susan and Mary Beth picked up their forks, their movements graceful, their posture impeccable. He tried to mimic them, but his grip was too tight, his movements too stiff. He accidentally clinked his fork against his plate, the sound ringing out in the quiet room. Mary Beth's smirk deepened. "You hold it like this," Susan said, demonstrating how to properly grip the fork. "And you cut with the knife in your right hand." Taylor nodded, adjusting his grip. "Got it." "Good," Susan said, her eyes gleaming. "It's important to know these things." Taylor took a bite, chewing slowly. The salad was good, fresh, crisp, the dressing tangy. But he could barely taste it. All he could think about was the way Mary Beth's dress swished when she shifted in her seat, the way the ruffles caught the light. "So, Taylor," Susan said, her voice taking on a dreamy quality, "have you ever been to a pageant?" Taylor blinked. "A pageant? Oh, yes." Susan's eyes lit up, her hands fluttering like excited birds. Mary Beth was such a star. Miss Georgia Peach 3 years running. Can you imagine? She started when she was just a baby, still in diapers. She laughed, a high, tinkling sound. I used to dress her up in the cutest little outfits. Ruffles, bows, tiaras, oh, she was adorable. Mary Beth's fingers tightened around her fork. She even won the Southern Belle Classic, Susan continued, her voice growing softer, nostalgic. Those were the best days. Just me and my little girl, traveling from show to show, she sighed, her gaze drifting to Mary Beth. I miss those days so much. Mary Beth's smile was tight, forced. Mom, she said, her voice flat. I know, Susan said, waving a hand. But do you remember last Halloween? When you indulged your old mother and let me dress you up in your first pageant dress? Diaper and all? She giggled, her eyes gleaming. You were such a good sport. Looked just like my little girl again. Taylor's stomach twisted. He imagined it, Mary Beth in a diaper, the frilly dress riding up just enough to show the bulge of it beneath the fabric. His face burned. He shifted in his seat, his pulse jumping. So, He cleared his throat, his voice coming out too high, too nervous. You still have, diapers? Here? Susan's eyes sparked with amusement. Oh, Taylor, she laughed, the sound light, teasing. Why? Do you want to try one on? Taylor choked, his face flaming. No. Of course not. I just, he let out a high-pitched laugh, his fingers fumbling with his napkin. That's ridiculous. Mary Beth's gaze flicked to him, her eyebrows raising just slightly. Quizzical. Suspecting. I mean, Taylor stammered, I just wondered if you still had them. I don't. Susan's smile widened. Oh, Taylor. Her voice was sweet, but there was something sharp beneath it. We might have a few lying around. Mary Beth's eyes narrowed, her head cocking slightly to the side. She was looking at him differently now, not like he was just some awkward cousin, but like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Taylor's face burned. He should have kept his mouth shut. But he couldn't stop thinking about it, the way the diaper would feel, the way the dress would swish around his legs, the way Susan's hands would fuss over him, adjusting the bows, smoothing the ruffles. Well, Susan said, her voice dripping with false innocence, if you're curious, I'm sure we could find something that fits. Taylor's throat went dry. He should have said no. He should have laughed it off. But he didn't. He just nodded, his fingers twisting in his lap. And for the first time, Susan looked at him like he was something interesting. Chapter 4, The Trap. The next morning, Mary Beth knocked on Taylor's door before he'd even finished rubbing the sleep from his eyes. She didn't wait for an answer before pushing it open, a garish pink garment bag slung over her shoulder. The scent of lavender and something sickly sweet, baby powder, maybe, floated into the room with her. Hey, she said, her voice casual, too casual. Taylor sat up, pulling the sheets tighter around his waist. What? She tossed the garment bag onto his bed. It landed with a soft thud, the plastic crinkling. I don't have enough room in my closet for all my pageant stuff. I need to store this in here for a while. Taylor blinked at the bag, his pulse jumping. Sure, I guess. Great. She didn't even wait for him to agree before unzipping the bag and pulling out the dress inside. It was pink, covered in sequins and ruffles, the kind of thing a toddler would wear in a beauty pageant. But it wasn't just a dress. The plastic panties were sewn right into it, the material stiff and unyielding. Mary Beth held it up, her fingers tracing the broken zipper at the back. It's from last year's Halloween. Diapers and all. Taylor's fingers twitched. Why can't you just put it in your own closet? Mary Beth shrugged. I told you. No room. And it's not like you care, right? No, he said quickly. I don't care. She smirked, just for a second, before her expression smoothed out. Thanks. She hung the dress in his closet, right in the front where he'd see it every time he opened the door. Don't touch it, okay? Mom would kill me if it got ruined. She set the stack of diapers on the closet shelf above the dress. Yeah. Okay. His voice came out too high, too eager. She lingered in the doorway, her eyes flicking over him. We're going into town later to get some stuff for my dorm. You can come if you want. Nah, he said, too fast. I'll just stay here. Mary Beth's smile was slow, knowing. Suit yourself. Taylor waited until he heard the front door close, the crunch of gravel under the tires as Susan's car pulled away. He counted to 60, just to be sure. Then he was out of bed, his fingers shaking as he unzipped the garment bag. The dress was heavier than he expected, the sequins catching the light as he pulled it out. The plastic panties were sewn into the lining, the material thick and unyielding. He ran his fingers over it, his breath coming faster. He shouldn't do this. But he did. He stripped off his clothes, his heart pounding as he pulled on one of the diapers. It was snug, the tapes tight around his waist. He adjusted it, the crinkle of the plastic loud in the quiet room. Then he stepped into the dress. It fit. Not perfectly, the chest was too loose, the fabric hanging where Mary Beth's curves would have filled it out. But the waist was snug, the zipper pulling tight as he tugged it up the back. He struggled with it, his fingers fumbling, but finally, it clicked into place at the nape of his neck. And then he felt it. The zipper wouldn't budge. He tugged, his fingers slipping. Panic clawed at his throat. Shit. Shit, Shit, shit. He was so focused on the zipper that he didn't hear the car return. The front door creaked open. Mom. Mary Beth's voice was sing-song, too bright. Let's ask Taylor if he's seen your purse. I have no idea where you left it. Footsteps. Fast, eager. Taylor scrambled back into the closet, yanking the door shut just as his bedroom door swung open. He pressed himself against the wall, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The dress was tight, the plastic panties holding the diaper firmly in place. He couldn't move. He couldn't escape. Taylor? Susan's voice was curious, amused. Are you in there? The closet door wrenched open. Mary Beth stood there, her hands on her hips, her smile triumphant. Look what we found. Susan's gasp was delighted. Taylor's face burned. I can explain. Oh, Taylor, Susan breathed, her eyes shining. You look perfect. Mary Beth's laugh was sharp, victorious. Thank you for listening to this exclusive Pam Jammer's magical tale. Your support makes all of this possible, and we're beyond thankful to have you as part of our storytelling family. Stay tuned for more exciting adventures, and until next time, take care and keep dreaming.